folks, and welcome into another edition of This Week in Pearl. I am your host, Frank Hutton, and today we're going to go under the dome with our own Representative Gene Newman. He has brought in a very special guest. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing him. It's going to be State Supreme Court Justice Kenny Griffis. Can't wait to have this conversation, so stay right there, because when we come back, we'll get into it with our own Supreme Court Justice Kenny Griffis. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mayor Windham, and I'm thrilled to show you the city creating its own future. Pearl is located in Rankin County, the fastest growing county in Mississippi, and there's no question why. Access to great schools, even better shopping, and unbridled beauty make Pearl a town that truly embodies its name. And with a truly exceptional team of first responders, public safety is another key component of our success. With fantastic housing opportunities from quaint suburban neighborhoods to gorgeous lakefront properties, there's a place for you here in Pearl. You can't beat the location. Right outside of Pearl is the crossroads of the South, where Interstate 20 meets Interstate 55. From here you can travel anywhere within the state or the country. Or you can choose to stay right here in Pearl or experience the small town atmosphere, community pride, and heart of the local residents.
Hi folks, welcome back into another edition of This Week in Pearl. Well, we are headed under the dome now, and our own State Representative Gene Newman has brought in a very special guest, which we want to welcome in. It is Supreme Court Justice, State Supreme Court Justice, Mr. Kenny Griffis. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you back.
Absolutely.
And thank you for bringing him in.
Glad to have him here. He's not only a good friend, but he's a good guy. So even if he is an Ole Miss fan.
We were just discussing this, were we not? But did you have to twist his arm or anything like that?
No, he came willingly.
He
came
willingly to the hot seat.
You know, the legislature controls our pay raises.
So he's asking for something. Anyway.
No, not at all. I'm very happy. Very happy. There's nothing in there.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, welcome in.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here, Mr. Justice, very much.
Thank
You have been on the Mississippi Supreme Court now for what, 5-6 years?
6 years.
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You got elected in 20. You were appointed to the Supreme Court from an appellate position.
Correct.
And then Bryant, I think you're one of three.
Right.
That the Governor Bryant appointed into the Supreme Court, and then you subsequently run re-election.
Right.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Very much because of the people of Pearl. Mm-hmm. I appreciate their support, their dedication, and their votes.
So you're in District 1,
right?
Which is, tell everybody what that encompasses.
Well, our Supreme Court districts were divided into three, and so my district really runs along I-20 from Meridian up to Noxubee County, across to Madison and Rankin County. And then it goes in the Delta, goes down to Jefferson County, Copiah County, and then all the way up to Washington County and Bolivar County in the Delta. And so it's we've got just under 1 million citizens in the district, and the other two, the Northern District and the Southern District, are very similar.
That's a lot of votes. And that's a lot of territory.
Right.
It's a lot of ground.
These districts have been used for many years, and in fact we use them for the Public Service Commissioner and the Highway Commissioner, and some of these other non-judicial posts also.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate you serving on the court. All right, so let's talk a little bit about before then.
Right.
So where are we from? Tell us about where we were born and raised.
Well, I was born and raised in Meridian. My mom and dad, at the time I was born, they were, my dad was a superintendent of the Masonic Home for Boys and Girls. So I thought everybody had 65 brothers and sisters. So the first 7 years of my life, I grew up in an environment where my parents not only took care of my sister and me, but took care of 65 other kids from Mississippi's Masons.
What year was that?
1961.
Okay.
Thanks for pointing that out. And my mom was a nurse, and
All right.
so that helped. She did all the work. My dad got paid, but he also went around the state of Mississippi and raised money through the Mississippi's Masons. And they built, I think, 6 new homes that are still in use today by Hope Village for children in Meridian.
Wow.
They had homes that were specially designed by a renowned architect named Chris Risher over there, and they're still functional. I mean, it's unbelievable to
Amazing.
think something designed back in the 1960s is still functional and still serving the kids in Mississippi
And
today.
how many is it?
Well, at that time there were 65. I don't
Okay.
think Hope Village has that many right now.
Okay.
And the numbers kind of fluctuate. The purpose of it was not an orphanage, but it was a place before we had all the regulation and things that we have on these type homes. It was a place where families that simply weren't able to raise their kids or weren't able to take care of their kids, they had a place to send them. And it was safe. It was a great environment. They were supported by the Masons in Mississippi. And so they even supported them, so the kids that went there, they could go as young as 1 or 2.
Wow.
And the ones that graduated from high school, the Masons paid for their college education.
Amazing.
So it's interesting. I've still got some friends who are in their 80s now that thank my mom and dad for the work that they did way back when. And
Sure.
And my mom and dad moved on from that. It was that was not their necessarily their calling. My mom was a school nurse. My dad eventually he stayed with the Masonic organization and was the Grand Secretary of Mississippi's Masons. And so I grew up over there. Went to Meridian High School. Wound up going to Ole Miss, graduating in accounting.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. And went out to Houston. I left Mississippi for 1 year. I went out to Houston and worked for an accounting firm before I realized I wanted to go to law school.
Back to Ole Miss.
Back to Ole Miss.
Right.
And I stayed in Mississippi, and it's been a great time. I love being here. I love the opportunities it has for me.
So you graduate law school, right into private practice?
Went in private practice in Meridian and actually practiced in Meridian for 2 years, and decided to move to the Jackson area. Moved over here in 1989. I practiced with a law firm that's now no longer in existence. It separated. I went a separate way and practiced that way until 2002 when I had an opportunity to run for the Mississippi Court of Appeals.
And won.
And won. That was my first. In fact, the night before the qualifying deadline, nobody knew I was thinking about running until I told my wife.
Wait a minute, you didn't even tell her?
I did not tell her until the night before, and I did ask her permission.
Yes.
And all I had to say is we would never have to go to a political fundraiser for anyone else. And she said, "We're in."
That's how you sold it.
That's it. That's how I sold it. And actually, at the time, we'd started our family a couple of years earlier. And so the practice of law is a very difficult practice, and it takes a lot of time. And if you're not doing it, it's still on your mind. So it was a way to find some discipline, some get out of the chaos of practice law and raising a family. And fortunately, I was able to enjoy the work of deciding cases on the court, and also had the time to spend with my kids.
With family.
And we wound up having 5 kids, and so I was there during their formidable years, and that was important to me.
So help me make the bridge between getting an accounting degree to wanting to go to law school. What happened there? You spent a year doing accounting. What made the law appealing?
I've got 3 sons that are going to graduate in accounting too.
Okay.
You know, when I went to Ole Miss, accounting was a good profession. It was a good discipline at any school. And Ole Miss, I'll tell you, if you go to accounting school, everybody who wants a job is going to have a job. And as I saw it, was the basis of all business. It was a lot of the basis of law. I knew I wanted to go further, but I went out and worked for a year and saw it and realized part of my job was to do tax returns for 2 of Texas's largest legal firms.
Okay.
I saw what they made. I saw that you could do very well if you practiced, if you worked hard and practiced. That the legal profession was a very, very lucrative space to be in. And more importantly, I saw it as an opportunity to help people. And I kind of always had that desire. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but went into accounting and found out what it was about, and then saw how those skills and that education would move over and to help me in my law practice. And my law practice was mainly a commercial law practice, helping people with business disputes, real estate, all different types of commercial law. So I'd find myself on the plaintiff side, on the defense side, really wanted to be in court, really wanted to help people decide, commercial disputes as opposed to domestic disputes or personal injury disputes and things like
Criminal law and
Right.
So you're more on the business side.
that. Absolutely.
Business tax, which uses accounting.
Yeah, well, I try to stay now that I was in the tax world, I try to stay away from it. Sometimes you learn what you don't want to do and what you're not good at.
I know, right?
That's right.
I remember the days too well of going through school, and I appreciate you for doing that part, because not me.
Certainly.
All right, so let's pause right there, because
Okay.
you mentioned your wonderful wife. How did you meet your wife?
Well, Mary Helen and I met at Governor Fordyce's second inaugural ball. We were both there with other people, neither of us dating anyone, and we met that night, and a couple of weeks later we started going out.
Okay, now what was she doing during this time period? What was she doing?
She was working in the family business. And she and I started dating, and I want to say a year later we got engaged and got married. And I'm going to get this wrong; it's going to be your fault. Got married in 1997.
All right.
She had a son at that time that was about 2 years old, so my stepson. Yeah. And then we had our first child, TK, in 1998. Yeah. And we had twins in 2000, and then we had a Christmas baby in 2002.
Oh my gosh.
So he's a senior in college now. And in fact, that was while she was pregnant while I was running in 2002. And he came to us as a Christmas present after the election.
Wow, isn't that amazing? That's really cool. So Governor Fordyce is responsible for introducing you to your bride.
He is. I'm sure he didn't know that, but we had a good time that night, and it was nice to be able to meet somebody.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. That's a great story. All right, so heavily involved in local stuff.
Right.
I mean, I know you are. In my reading about what you do, you've served on many boards, especially when it comes to kids, to your kids. So help us out. Like Ridgeland, you've been on baseball boards, you've been on soccer boards.
Yeah.
You've been on. You're heavily involved in. I know, right? And here I am ringing it up.
That's all right.
But do you coach any of those kids? Did you do all of that?
Absolutely. I've still got some kids that come up to me today, and they're in their 30s, and they call me coach. Started out with the Northside Y.
Right.
Actually, I was on the board with the Northside Y in Jackson when that was a very popular place to be.
Yep.
And I moved on, and I got involved with the Madison Ridgeland Youth Club in soccer and in baseball.
Up there? That's just grown.
Oh, it had exploded then. It was tremendous trying to keep up with the involvement. And our mayors in Madison and Ridgeland have been devoted to youth sports and have I know like Rankin County, I mean, we see the opportunities there. We want to get these kids on fields. We want to get them hitting balls one way or the other. And so I just, I realized with 5 kids, frankly, it was very selfish of me that the only way I could control their practice schedules was to be the coach. And so if I wanted to have one night off a week, then I needed to be the coach so I could set the practice time. I lost count of how many teams I've coached. I've coached over 80 youth sports teams.
Oh my gosh.
I've been on the board of Madison Ridgeland Youth Club. I've been on the board of the North Jackson baseball. I was president of Northeast Jackson Soccer Organization, which became JFC, which later merged with others.
I played at JSO when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, when I got to NASO, we basically had no money.
Right.
We were about to go under, and we through the work of a number of people, we were able to restore that because, unlike Pearl, one thing, Jackson does not support its youth sports.
I know, right?
And the one thing they did was they cut the grass at North Jackson Youth Baseball. But at NASO and JFC, we paid for everything, and we did everything, and we provide. I think I'm proud of the opportunity we provided for a lot of kids. That there are a lot of good memories back on those fields near the Pearl River. So,
Yeah, wasn't that a lot of fun?
absolutely.
And it's great to be able to spend time with the kids and all that. So you coached over 80 different things. Yeah. That's a lot of fun.
It was. I'm glad I'm not doing that any longer.
I know, right? But anyway, it's great. No, because I mean that shapes, I think, who we are, but also it shapes our children.
It's a time of our life. We all need to volunteer. Unfortunately, the only thing I have with a lot of these travel sports teams is it's taken away a lot of the people that would be great coaches for rec baseball, rec soccer, rec flag football, because a lot of those kids are doing travel baseball because their dad spent time with them when they were young. And that's, to me, the only negative. And I'm not against travel sports at all.
Right.
The one negative is the quality of coaches that are no longer involved. And that's a shame.
Yeah, and that is a shame. I know I coached my boys. Of course, Gene's known me a long time, and I've coached all my kids, between my wife's two and my two. You know, we had 4 boys, and they've all played right here in Pearl, and played baseball and football, and all. I coached them all when they were little. Now I've got one that is a coach at Madison Central. So I have one that grew up to do it as a profession. But so I understand, and it's a great thing, and sticking with family and honor. Okay, so in the process of that, you run for appellate court, and you win, and you worked your way from the rookie justice on the appellate court to running the place. Tell me about that experience. You spent, what, 16 years?
Well, I was about 16 years on the Court of Appeals.
Yeah, Court of Appeals.
I became the chief judge.
Right.
At the very end. In fact, Bill Waller appointed me as the chief judge. I only served 1 month as chief judge because then I was appointed to replace Bill Waller.
I know, right?
So Bill and I had a great conversation on whether or not to appoint me. But it was indeed an honor. Sure. The Court of Appeals is little known in the state, but they do a lot of work.
Help us out. Help explain to our audience what. I know you know, because it kind of the minutia gets a little lost. People won't really understand.
The easy way to explain it, I think everybody knows our local government.
Yes.
And if you go to Brandon, we've got several courthouses. Our justice system starts with justice court judges, which I think we've got election coming up here. And after justice court judges, we've got county court judges, and our county court judges have a little bit different jurisdiction. And then we have constitutional courts of circuit and chancery court. So what happens is the people, if you've got a dispute, if you've got a divorce, if you've got a medical malpractice case, you're going to go and have it tried at one of our courts of record, either county courts, chancery court, or circuit court. And there's specific reasons to be in specific courts. I won't really get into that.
Sure.
But once you try the case there where people come and testify, in Circuit County you have a jury makes the decision. Well, there's a court reporter down front that is working on the machine and taking down what everybody says. And so the jury is the finder of fact in circuit and county court. In Chancery Court, the judge is the finder of fact. And so the appellate system is simply a way that after you go to a trial court, if you feel like you did not have the law properly determined, you've got an opportunity to appeal that. We don't second guess juries. We don't second guess factual findings of chancellors. We give them an abuse of discretion, a substantial evidence type review. And so what happens is that we can set it aside if we find out they did not follow the law. And so you've got another way to go if you feel the trial judge has not followed the law, did not properly adjudicate the case, did not give the jury proper instructions. And so it's another step on the way to make sure that we got it correct. And the Court of Appeals is really what we would call more of an error correction court. The cases that they receive are going to be along the lines of, does the evidence support the verdict? Did the judge properly instruct the jury? Did the judge follow the law? Did the witnesses follow the rules of evidence? And is this a proper verdict? And so I'd say when I first started, the Court of Appeals was doing about 650 cases a year. Now I think it's around 400 cases a year. There are 10 judges, 2 each from the old 5 congressional districts. And so it was set up in 1994 that way by Governor Fordyce and others when they established it. And at that time, to get an appeal completed, it would take over 3 years from the Supreme Court. And our legislature said, thanks to Gene and those before, said that's not acceptable. In our justice system, you know, justice delayed is often justice denied.
Correct.
And so the quicker we can have the appeals heard, the better it's going to be for our people. And so we set up the Court of Appeals. It's been 30 years now, the Court of Appeals. It's been a great success story. We've decided cases, provided written opinions in a lot of cases, and move cases along and allow people, you know, not everybody feels like it's just when they go to court.
Sure.
You know, sometimes there's a winner and a loser, and hopefully they're going to follow the law in making that decision, and the jury or the judge is going to make the factual decision.
You mentioned the jury making the factual decision, and it kind of generated a question that I think most people would like to know, because that helped me understand it a little bit better. You're basically, as an appellate judge, you're making sure procedure and rules are followed. You're not necessarily deciding whether the jury got it right or wrong.
That's it.
You're making sure that the evidence process was followed, the law process was followed, procedures were followed. It's really not about, they could have done all of that and not convicted or not found fault. They could have, the jury could have just said, we're not going to.
So just take our chancery court system.
Sure.
You know, Hayden Roberts, Troy Odom, Judge McLaurin, they're hearing cases every day, and they are the finder of fact. People come, they present their case through testimony and through documents. And that testimony, those documents, is going to be governed by the Mississippi Rules of Evidence. And so you can't just go in and say, well, Gene told me this or they told me that. We've got some rules that are to be followed. Well, sometimes there are tough decisions in those, and sometimes they get it wrong. And so if one of our chancellors is going to make a decision about who's going to have custody of a child, which I think is a pretty big decision.
That's a big deal.
I want to wake up in the morning with my kids. And unfortunately, we have people getting divorced. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that after the divorce, people can go forward with new lives, and they can go forward in a way where the kids won't be hurt. Well, they've got to follow the rules in accepting the evidence. And the decisions have to be based on that evidence, not something improper, not something that they've heard about or maybe looked at, but proper decision. The same thing in our criminal courts. There's some, you know, we read the newspapers. There's some awful things that we do to each other. And our criminal justice system, through our DA, Bubba Bramlett, does a great job of presenting those crimes. And the prosecutor has the burden of proof, and they've got to go into court, and they've got to present evidence based on the rules of evidence. And they've got to present evidence that supports the crime that they've been charged with. And sometimes it's hard to prove those crimes. And sometimes the jury gets it right when they declare that they are not guilty, and sometimes they get it right when they declare they're guilty. But in our system, we've put that on the court system and the jury to make that ultimate decision. Now, we look back at it. We look at it from hindsight.
So you go from like the beginning of it, of the case in the chancery court?
We don't start at the beginning. In fact, what we do is we start really with the final judgment.
With the final judgment.
And then we let the parties tell us what they think was wrong.
I got you.
And so we don't go hunting for issues. We don't go hunting for reasons to overturn it. We let the parties tell us, and we rely on the parties. And if they don't bring it up, we will consider it waived.
Really?
But we're going to start with somebody filing a notice of appeal, which is basically raising their hand and saying, we think there's a mistake, we think there's an error here that affects this decision. And so at that point, they're going to brief it to us. The appellate's going to file their brief. They're going to give us what their issues are. They're going to make their argument. And then the appellee, the winning side, is going to get a chance to say why they're wrong. And it's all on paper, so we're reading a lot.
So you read a lot.
Yeah, we read a good bit.
Oh my goodness.
We can have oral arguments where they come and we ask them questions. Those arguments are live streamed, so they're available on the internet. Where we ask questions, sometimes they tell us what they think is important, and we're able to use those oral arguments and go back and make decisions. And usually what we're doing is we're looking to see, did they get not just did they get it right, but did they follow the law?
Do each of you on? Now, how many would sit on like to hear? Or would it be all of you, or is it like?
Well, it can
just
be. There are 9 of us.
Right.
And on the Court of Appeals, there are 10.
Sure.
Usually the Court of Appeals hears oral arguments with a maximum of 3 judges. So,
Okay, so
they
yeah,
work in
it-
panels
right,
of
it would-
3.
It would be panels of 3.
Right. And on the
Right.
Supreme Court, we work in panels of 3 also. So most of the time, it's going to be a panel of 3. There are some exceptions. We do hear death penalty cases. We hear cases that deal with constitutionality and unconstitutionality of statutes. A death penalty is different. We're going to have an oral argument. It's going to be all 9 of us. We're going to let them argue as long as they want to argue to get to the point. So if you see all 9 of us, it is what we call an in-bank or
Right.
en banc
Right.
discussion, and that brings everybody in there. Now, one of the interesting parts of, even if we've got 3 judges that are in there on the oral argument, the others may be upstairs watching it on
They're
the
paying.
live stream.
They're paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the
Right.
live stream.
Sure.
It's there for everybody.
Right.
And it's there for the other judges. If I miss it, it's recorded. I can go back and watch it.
So if I'm kind of following along. So if I'm the attorney presenting my appeal, and I don't mention something, you consider it waived, even if you look
Right.
at it and go, well, they should have appealed on
Right.
this, but since they didn't, we're
Right.
not. You don't even consider it, even if it's something you see as
Well,
an appeals judge.
It can be something very minor.
Okay.
It could be something minor that really doesn't have anything to do
Well, that's
with the ultimate, and so they're not going to.
that's
bring
where
that
I was
forward.
going. Let's
Yeah.
say it's the attorney's not.
Yeah.
Hasn't necessarily filed the proper appeal. You see that would directly affect the outcome of the case.
Well, now there's a difference, because usually what I'm talking about is usually the error, we would call that harmless.
Yes.
That it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
If it's going to have an impact on the outcome, yeah, we're going to take a look at it.
You would take a look at
Yeah,
it whether
and we may ask the parties to brief it if they haven't. We have to follow United States Supreme Court decisions and law, especially in a lot of criminal cases, where over the years they have made a number of changes in the criminal procedure.
Like I made a mess.
Yeah, and so we have to follow those. In fact, a couple of months ago, we executed a guy named Richard Jordan who'd been on death row for 50 years.
Right.
And people came to me and said, that's unbelievable how long. Well, that was because of the changes in the law from the 1970s and the early 1980s by the United States Supreme Court. And he was given additional hearings, given additional sentencing, given additional trials in order to be compliant with the United States Supreme Court. I'm not complaining about that. He's
Sure.
been executed. I feel very comfortable that we have followed the proper procedure
And you got it right.
law, and we got it right. In fact, we've got another death penalty set for October 15th on Charles Ray Crawford. They have since last week, I learned, they filed a petition for writ of certiorari with the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court may continue it, may postpone it, or may call it off. That's within their rights. And so that matter right now is before the United States Supreme Court, but the Department of Corrections is preparing for that execution.
There's a lot that goes into death penalty.
Absolutely.
Just because you may get death penalty today, it may be, as you said, 50 years later before that's actually carried out.
Well, I mean, and I think rightfully so. We want to make sure that we don't execute somebody if we have not followed all the law to the T. And in death penalty cases, we need to dot our I's and cross our T's and take our time and not get in a rush.
But is 50 years a little long?
I'll let you and others decide that. I had nothing to do with the delay.
No, of course not.
I've only been there a couple of
of course
years.
not. No.
And when it
Right.
came before us, I think we acted
Yeah. Right.
expeditiously.
Right.
We acted in a proper in a proper manner.
When it gets to you,
Yeah, I can't say for those that have been
Yes.
before me.
right.
And if they want to make me king for a day, we can start early and work late and get a lot done.
Talk about that.
But as an appellate judge, one of the first
Sure.
things you have to understand is
Yes.
I'm not a king.
Yeah,
I'm
right,
not.
right.
It's not what I want to do.
Right.
That my job is to make sure the law's been followed. My job is to stay in that lane to make sure the proper procedures have taken place. My job is to make sure not just what I want to do, but what are the parties asking? What are they asking for in this case? And why are they entitled to it? And so ultimately we want to make sure that a case that's decided in Tippah County is decided not necessarily the same way, but in accordance with the same rules and the same procedures as they do in Pascagoula.
Sure.
And
From one end of the state to the other.
that's right. And
Right.
so we've got, we try to make the law consistent. We want to make sure the law is properly applied in that consistent manner. If our friends at the legislature want to change that law, that's
On
that's
them.
their branch.
That's
And-
right.
And they certainly have that right to. And a lot
Yeah.
of times, Gene and I joke around a good bit. But they want to look and see, if there are problems in our laws right now. There are problems with the way that they're being interpreted by our courts. Are there different ways to do it? A couple of years ago, they made some changes in probation and parole. Good or bad, that's beyond my pay grade.
I know Gene's been a big champion of that stuff.
Yeah, well,
changing probation and parole. He's
well, it's important. I mean, it's important how we correct people in our Department of Corrections.
And it's extremely important for our Supreme Court to have the members of that court to be constitutionally aware and to that their main job is to uphold our state constitution and the U.S. Constitution, and to make sure that when you follow that Constitution, then whatever we mess up, they can solve with the Constitution, and if it's not messed up, then by the Constitution they don't have to. So
sure.
that's the main thing that I would ask out of any of them is just follow.
And you want somebody that's very well qualified for that.
Yes,
Because of that reason.
That's exactly
And I was
right.
just fixing to ask our city justice here. So really that details of learning accounting, getting into the details, because accounting's details. It's all in the details.
Yeah.
That's really carried over for you in appellate
Sure,
court,
sure.
because it's really
Now-
getting down into the details, right?
I've learned a lot about different things I didn't really know much about. Fortunately, my law practice for over 16 years, I did several different types of law. And so I was exposed to a lot of different things. And so that really helped me. And accounting helped me because I understood the numbers and how they got to the numbers. We don't have a lot of accounting cases.
No, of course. Right.
But we do have a lot of cases where numbers are dealt with. And it's important to deal with those numbers in the proper way, especially in commercial matters. Gene was talking about in criminal law, in our civil law, commerce in our state. We need laws that are certain that people bringing money into our state to invest in our state, what they want to do is they want to make sure there's some certainty in our law and that they're not just going to get browbeat just because they've got some money.
Now you're talking stability in the court.
Right, and
Right.
our oath of office actually talks about we'll do equal justice to the poor and the rich. Well, the way I interpret it says we're going to do equal justice to both, not one versus the other,
Right.
but to both. And to me, that's a fairness issue, and fairness is not always in the outcome.
Sure.
Fairness is in how you get to that outcome. Not all outcomes are going to be the same.
Right. And the law's black and white.
Usually.
Pretty much.
Usually
right?
that's what you need as far as the gray area.
I was just going to say you're working in the gray.
Yeah.
Is that about accurate?
The hardest cases are in the gray, yes.
Yeah.
The hardest cases are the ones that have facts on both sides, and so the question is which ways it go.
Right.
A lot of times that's really easy because if the facts are on both sides, then we're going to let the jury decide. And if the jury decides that there are facts to support it both ways, we're going to uphold it.
And as Gene pointed out, if the law's not quite right, they can't get every single one right. I mean,
We try.
we try, obviously,
Right.
but we're all human. We all fall short, right? So you come in and say, look, this law is not quite right.
Right.
And so we're going to punt it, and you're going to have to go redo it because of these. Is that fair?
Yeah, so the thing is, you got what 3,000 or 4,000 lawyers in the state of Mississippi spread across the state.
6,000.
Yeah, well 6,000. That's even worse. But anyway, you think about, and I'm being serious. You can take those 6,000 lawyers, and you can take the sentence that Dick ran up the hill and ain't two of them gonna have the same definition of what that means.
Well,
so.
no, you can make the argument that it was not a
comment on
hill; it was more of a mountain, or technically it was
I'm
just a small
saying,
rise.
Attorneys, every attorney reads the law differently for
Sure.
some reason. But the main thing that we want out of our Supreme Court justices is that they just follow the
They just
Constitution,
follow it, right?
And our state Constitution and the U.S. Constitution, and then they will get it right on what they're doing.
Help me out, sir, on how difficult is it to try to remain impartial? I know as a you're a human being.
Yeah.
I mean, you bleed just like I do. I mean, it's you try to remain impartial. It's just overall, how hard is it for justices to keep that impartiality?
Bias and impartiality a lot of times is in the eye of the beholder.
Sure.
You know,
It's in your perspective.
there are a lot
right?
of times. I mean, I get accused of being biased, and in situations where clearly we're not. Most people, especially if they're in the judicial system, if they've got a case going through, unfortunately are gonna decide whether somebody's biased or prejudiced based on the outcome they receive.
Sure, obviously.
And
right.
so that's the unfortunate part of it. What we hope is that people will look at the facts of the case. That's why we hand down written decisions. We explain to the people in the case. We explain to judges. We explain to lawyers. We explain to the public. This is why we decided this case, and these are the facts that we relied on. And part of the reason for that is to remove the bias from it. We're fairly transparent, and we put on our orders how we voted. And so if you want to see how I voted on any case, all you got to do is look at the opinion at the end. My name's on it. I have to vote on it. I have to tell people I believe this is right or this is not. And if I don't believe it's right, I've got an obligation to write a dissenting opinion and try to change the mind. What I have found is that most appellate judges are willing to talk to you about cases. And there are a lot of times that what we do is we sit down over a cup of coffee and we talk about the cases. Sometimes 5, 10, 15, 20 times. And we talk about what the allegations are, what the arguments are, what the cases say. And we have discussions. Sometimes we may get a little bit heated at each other, because what we're dealing with matters.
Right.
But by and all, I think we're very collegial. We have our discussions. In the end, we stop the arguments, stop the discussions, and we vote. And we add up the votes at the end. And with 9 of us there, you really are trying to, you need 5 votes. And 5 votes controls, and 1 vote matters. And so a lot of times it's conversations that we have where we're pushing each other, asking each other, show me a case that says that, show me a case that decided it in that manner. And we look to the past, we look to precedent, we look to make sure that we're deciding it the same way today that we did 30 years ago. If they want to change the law, of course, we're going to follow their change in the law and have that discussion. But bias and prejudice oftentimes is in the eye of the beholder.
I know, right.
And
if you're on the losing side,
it's
you're
whose
gonna say,
ox is being
the judge-
gored.
Right, right.
The easy thing, unfortunately, is to say, well, the judge's been bought off. And, that's unfortunate.
I know, which is not true.
It's not true.
It's not true.
And they may be wrong. They may not get it right in their view. But it's just unfortunate that that's the view.
All right, so you have a lot of people that work for you and with you, law clerks.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. So tell me what's the structure now
Okay.
that's being over in the Supreme Court? What's the structure? How you have law clerks and assistants? How does that work?
The people of the state of Mississippi, through our representatives, provide us with a judicial assistant who works with the other judges' judicial assistants to make sure that we get our work done in a timely manner. I also have 2 law clerks who've been with me for a number of years, and 1 law clerk I change over every year. And those law clerks are invaluable to me. My career clerk does a lot of work that is outstanding. She knows how I view cases. She and I have argued many times about the right way to decide cases. and how to change opinions. And so I've got help for me. They work for me.
Well, I would just fix to ask, are they a sounding board?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They work, but they work for me.
Right.
And then I've also got other lawyers. We have a central legal staff that works for the court. And I want to say we've got 7 lawyers, 8 lawyers. And what they do is more general matters. They help us to decide motions that come to the court. They help us to decide whether or not we're going to take up on certiorari cases that have been decided by the Court of Appeals. They also take on the law clerk task for us in the more crucial cases, the death penalty cases.
Oh, okay.
So we want to make sure that I don't have my recent graduate from Ole Miss or MC doing a death penalty case. We've got some experienced lawyers who've done these before, and they're the ones providing us.
And of course, that new attorney that's working as a clerk, they get invaluable experience.
Right. Well, it's always good. I bring on somebody new every year, or almost every year. And one of the first things I tell them is, you're fired a year from now. Let's find you a job. But in the meantime, let's get you some experience in a lot of different areas. You'll see criminal law cases, you'll see civil cases, domestic cases, workers' comp cases, all types of cases that may not help you decide what kind of law you want to practice, but it may help you decide what kind of law you don't want to practice.
I was just saying what you don't want to practice.
But both the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I mean, a lot of what we do is due to the outstanding work of our law clerks and our lawyers that work with us. And so from that, I'll jump in. We've got some other areas that we cover too. And so we have to go to the legislature not only for our people, but we go to the legislature for the trial courts, for their law clerks. Their law clerks are important. They used to not have a number of law clerks. And so now we have, we've increased the pay. We keep trying, doing the best we can, but with those, the counties pay for a lot of those. And so we want to have outstanding people working so that cases can move. We don't want our dockets to get
That's
clogged.
about efficiency, is it
Right.
not? I mean, when you have more hands, obviously, when you got more hands, it can move quicker.
Right. And so, you go to a trial over here in Brandon, Circuit Court. You're not only going to have the judge there, but you're going to have the staff working behind the scenes who are scheduling the cases for even next year, and who are helping make sure the orders get out, the decisions are made in a prompt and timely manner. And so we've got a lot of people throughout the state that are law clerks, court administrators, court reporters, people that are involved in this, and we're working every day. And unfortunately, it's hard for us to work on more than one case at a time.
Sure.
And if you try a case and it takes 2 weeks to try, well, that bottles things up. So we're constantly trying to keep the wheels of justice turning. But what we want is, and as Gene noted, our Constitution back in 1890, we want to give people their day in court. We want the courthouse door to be open. We want people to be able to come in there and have the law interpreted, have a decision made. And sometimes the question is, and we just went through this in redistricting, where we had to move some of the pieces. And unfortunately, the Delta has lost some population. We moved some of those pieces down to the coast or some other counties, and we restructured some areas. And so we're having to go through that, work through the details of that, because we've also got Mississippi Electronic Courts, which is our electronic filing system. And so now, they've got to provide us servers and personnel and coders and people like that. And now, because of the change, the result in the change is we've got to change up the districts, the assignment of cases. And so there's work to be done that the people don't necessarily see, but it's getting ready for this change. And it's hopefully getting ready to have more judges. We just added a judge, I believe, in Hinds County. We just added a judge in DeSoto counties, areas where we needed more hands on deck. And so that takes a little bit of work through Mississippi Electronic Courts, through our administrative office of the courts, and to get all those up and running.
I imagine that there's a lot of people, I don't fully understand it either, but there's a lot of people that are watching this that don't understand any of that.
Right.
And this is great to hear, because now, obviously, we're talking 30,000 foot view here. We're not getting down in the details, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on that the average Mississippi citizen just doesn't know about, do they?
They don't think about what all the courts do. I mean, they really. I mean, you think about we had the Bubba Bramlett, the DA, in with us, and you would think that if one of the circuit court judges had a question about the law, they would just go to the DA's office. Well, you're going to one side of the conversation,
Right.
So they have to have an attorney to help them sometimes on parts of the law.
Right.
I mean, there's so many pieces of our justice system, not just the criminal justice system, not just civil, but there's so many pieces of it, and when it all filters up, it stops with them.
The buck stops right here.
Yeah.
And
With
I'll
you
just-
9.
I'll add to it because Gene has been a great champion
Sure.
of the judicial system. And one of the things we have to go to we're a separate branch of government, but we have to go to the legislature with budget requests basically for our entire branch.
Sure.
And so a lot of times people think, well, that's just for judges. Well, no, it's our support staff. It's for all the trial judges. It's for their support staff.
Right.
It reaches even further. We've got in Mississippi Electronic Courts. We've got to provide for that. We've got our administrative office of the court. We've got drug courts, which is a new thing that we've got, a fairly new thing. And now we call them intervention courts, where we're needing to put more money in there that we can get some diversion programs. CPS, Child Protective Services. We have to work hand in glove with CPS because the foster kids are constantly needing judicial review, and whether to get them adopted and get them out of foster care is an area that we touch. And so then we touch the Department of Corrections. I'll say this for my circuit judges and
that's on the executive
and,
branch.
and for our prosecutors.
Right.
One of the hardest things is determining exactly how long somebody's going to serve a sentence. And that's one of the struggles we have. That Department of Corrections has a tremendous responsibility. They have a very large budget. They have a lot of different types of programs. But it's important that we know when somebody is coming into our correction system, we know how long they're going to be there. We know that we've got the proper services for them, that we can deal with addiction, we can deal with some mental
health issues.
Yeah, we're finding out that,
Right.
that there are reasons that people commit crimes that are not just because of what we normally think. They're just bad people. Some of them have mental conditions. Some of them have drug addictions. And we've determined if we can put the investment there and get them out of this correction system, out of the judicial system, and if we can solve the addiction or solve the mental health issue, then we're not going to have the criminal issue later on. Now we've got some bad people, and so we joke sometimes that the job of circuit court is to decide, the good people from the bad people, the people that we can help versus the people that
you can't.
whatever we do,
Right.
we're not going to be able to help. And if somebody sticks a gun in somebody's face or robs somebody or rapes somebody, I just believe the second time is going to be easier than the first time. And for those people, that we've got to have a place for them to stay so that the people can feel safe. But for people who can show change of behavior, they can show that they can come out and operate. And we do have a standard, and the standard is to leave other people alone. And if they can operate in that manner, we want to give them an avenue out of the correction system.
So there's a lot of moving parts in the justice department.
He mentioned the drug courts. You also you have a veterans court, which is partly the same way, but it's dealing specifically with veterans. And we need to spread that. We need to and get that spread out further to Veterans Court. It's designed to help veterans who have gone through PTSD or other problems with coming back from war, and specifically helping them with their
end up on the wrong
problems
side of the
that
law.
they end up on the wrong side of the law,
Right.
and we just need a way to help them and move
Kind
them
of
along.
carving them out.
Right.
Yeah, we're finding
Because you carve them out because you got stuff that you can get for veterans that you can't get
From
for
the
that.
federal
yeah,
level.
from the federal
Right.
level.
Right.
So kind of one of the more difficult issues is in order to get in what we call the intervention courts, really you have to commit a crime. You can't just get in there.
You can't just
we got a
walk
lot
in.
of people
Hey,
that
I
want to get
wanna-
in there.
I wanna be in the
Yeah,
intervention court.
But
Oh,
you've got
no.
to commit a crime,
Right.
unfortunately. And so with veterans courts especially, we're looking at a lot of people who've served our country and they come back, and it may be that through the Veterans Administration they've not received the proper care that they needed. And if we can get them that care, if we can get that that responsibility in them, that they've got a responsibility to act in a certain manner, and make sure that they've got their benefits through the Veterans Administration, that they've got somebody taking a look at them, adjusting whatever medicines there are. The harder issue that we're tasked with is mental health courts. In all of our communities, there are people that are, they may be homeless, otherwise they may be causing problems out on the street. They're not committing a crime,
Right.
but generally what happens is people call the sheriff,
Right.
or call the police and say, what do you do with it? Well, the sheriff and the police, law enforcement are taught we can't arrest somebody who hasn't committed a crime, but they wind up with that person. What do they do with them? Where do they go? And Mississippi's still working on this mental health problem.
We are. We've
that
had
we
that
have.
issue right here in Pearl.
And so we've seen some benefits from the drug court model and the veterans court model that we can also apply in the mental health model. And so, quite frankly, I give credit to our county and our circuit judges because this is not necessarily part of their job description, but they're spending time working with these. And what they have found out is what we found out is when we have somebody that has committed a crime that's looking at a jail sentence, if we offer them an alternative, but we put very tight restrictions on it, you're going to be drug tested every week. You're going to show up and answer for any problems that you cause in the community, and do it in a public way with other members of drug court, because there's no greater image to get the participants to participate and do what they're supposed to do than to have a fellow participant marched out in handcuffs because they didn't follow the rules, and then we turn them over to Department of Corrections. But we have some outstanding stories of people who have been through 3 and 5 years of drug treatment and not cost the people of the state of Mississippi a dime. They've paid their fines, they've paid their fees, they've been to their meetings, they've had the addiction treatment. They have proven to the judge that they're going to be responsible citizens. Sometimes we have people that relapse during the system. Well, once an addict, always an addict. They got to fight that every day. Well, our judges are proving to them, okay, if you relapse, here's the consequence. But I'm not going to kick you out right now. I've still got a little belief in you. And they're going to give them another chance. And if they show promise and they show that they're going to follow along with the program, we're going to give them a second chance and maybe a third chance, because the effort is at that end of the period that they are no longer in the criminal justice system.
Addiction's hard.
It is hard.
Addiction is very difficult.
And
Mental
if you don't mind me telling you this, we've got hundreds of millions of dollars right now in this opioid settlement that Attorney General Fitch has brought. We've got a task force that's bringing some ideas, and we've got money, I think, to the local cities. I don't know how much Pearl or Brandon have received in these, but the monies that we've received is supposed to go to addiction and the opioid addiction, and hopefully that's where this money's going to go. Hopefully this task force is going to give some good ideas to the legislature that we're going to be able to couple with Department of Corrections, with Department of Mental Health, and as forgetting that I'm a judge, but just as a person, I've had friends and family that need addiction treatment, and that's a hard one.
I think it touches all of us.
It's a hard one to know, where does my sister who got addicted to something, what can I do? And I think hopefully through this money we're going to create programs that will not just educate but provide a pathway for addiction, because not all addiction's the same. You can have young kid that gets caught with marijuana is not the same as somebody who's doing cocaine.
Right.
But we've got to have different programs. We've got to make sure that this money's coming in. It's not going to be spent on necessarily pet projects. It's going to be spent for the purpose of dealing with addiction.
I'm hoping that our audience is realizing there's a lot more to the judicial court system based off what we're talking about right here than people realize. You as judges are tasked with a huge responsibility. Goes back to what we said earlier. We need to keep the right people in the right jobs.
That's
Isn't
right.
that right.
That's right. We need to keep the right people in the right job. When they know what they're doing, you need to keep them there.
Because clearly there's so much going on, and you understand. You have such a good grasp of all of this.
Well, we've got a lot of moving parts.
There's a ton.
And I'll say this,
oh my gosh!
We've got judicial elections next year, and so we'll have an opportunity next year to elect our judiciary in Rankin County for the next 4 years. I don't know whether to be opposed or unopposed, but one of the things that's for certain, you know, one thing we like to do is we like to stay quiet. We don't run to the newspapers every day.
No,
we
you
try
don't.
to take care of our business.
Yep.
We go over to the legislature and we have a respectful conversation with what we need. They don't always agree with us, and that's fine. They've got the whole budget. We're looking at a little
Yeah, you
piece of it.
need your little piece.
Right.
Right.
But we work together well.
Right.
And you know, as a Supreme Court justice, I'm not in the news very much.
Right.
It may get in the news for an opinion I've written or something like that. But you know, there are a lot of other issues that we're dealing with. You know, I'll add to that bar admissions. We just had 100 and something new lawyers come in. We had a very high pass rate. We're changing our bar over the next couple of years, hopefully to Gene's not gonna like this, hopefully to increase the number of lawyers. We've had, over the last 10
Are we having
years,
a shortage?
well, over the last 10 years, we've had about a 1/3 decline
Really?
in the number of lawyers.
All the old guys that came in with me are all
retiring.
retiring.
Well, we
Or
used to have
worse.
about 250 to 300 new lawyers a year, and now we've got about 150 new lawyers
Really?
a year. Yeah.
How do you explain that?
Well, we don't have long enough for me to go.
Being an
into
attorney
that.
is hard work.
Well,
Yes, it is.
Our law schools, you know, the bar, a lot has to do with the bars in other states. There's a bar that you can take called the Uniform Bar that if you pass it and make a high enough score, you're qualified to practice law in 41 states.
Wow.
Mississippi's not one of those 41.
Really?
So we have a lot of law students, if they don't have jobs, they'll take the bar, the Uniform Bar, and be licensed in a lot of other states. We're about to change that, I hope.
Are we going to
Is that a legislative issue or that's a bar?
That's a court issue.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
And,
court issue. I think
and,
is that a legislative issue
Yeah,
there?
the legislature did not cause that problem, and they're not going to be asked to fix that
That's
problem.
one of the only problems we didn't cause.
So we'll deal with it. We also, you know, we
So
deal with lawyers. We
Yeah.
deal with the discipline of lawyers.
Yeah.
We deal with the licensing of lawyers. We deal with the code of professional conduct. We've changed over the last couple of years some of our rules of professional conduct to bring it more in line with the national.
Now, do you nine decide all of this?
We do.
So at the top,
We do.
at the top level, you're tasked with
Right.
these decisions.
Right. Unfortunately, I'm one. We changed our rules on lawyer advertising. That's now why you see Mama Justice and Tiger Law Group. Well, a couple of years ago, we changed our rules of professional conduct to allow that. Now, we didn't just do it willy-nilly. The reason we did it is because states all over the country were changing that. There had been a number of challenges, even with the United States Supreme Court, that were saying not allowing trade names was unconstitutional. And so rather than fight that legal battle, we made the decision to allow it. I'm not sure that it's better for the legal profession.
I remember when lawyers could not advertise at all.
I know, right?
Couldn't even be the yellow pages.
And
They
that,
just
and
the
that
listing.
violated, you know, the United States Supreme Court ultimately came and said it violated their free speech rights. And so we've dealt with it. We've tried to not only discipline lawyers that have advertised improperly, but set forth what are some constitutional guidelines to be followed. Now, I wouldn't pick my lawyer based on a billboard,
Right.
but a lot of people do.
Apparently so.
And a lot of people
Look, you're
get
using them.
justice.
Or by what they see on TV, Mama Justice.
And a lot of the,
Right.
look, Mama Justice and Richard Schwartz and the people at Morgan & Morgan are excellent lawyers, and they do a great service for their clients. So I'm certainly not disparaging any of those. But a
That's
lot
just
of
the
the
way they
public,
do business.
a lot of the public has decided, has gotten away from asking their local lawyer who would be good to help us, to looking at the billboard and calling them up, trying to get some
That's
free
just
legal
a
advice.
changing of the times. I mean, now everybody just Googles.
Right. And it used to be the fight for lawyers was the coveted back of the phone book. Well, I don't even know if anybody has a phone book anymore.
I think so.
but now, you know, I can remember when people said you throw money away if you advertised on social media. Now, you know, now they have it where if I type in personal injury, you know, or injury, you know, it's going to come up
Yeah.
on my Google search, and then they're going to find out a lot of information, and quite frankly, I think that's better.
Right.
I mean, because
is that a
if
bad
you're
thing?
willing to
No.
do the work, you
Sure.
can find out the difference between Morgan & Morgan and Mama Justice and,
Or Richard
or
Schwartz
local,
or-
yeah, or,
yeah.
or local attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can have more targeted advertising. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in a better spot. I'm certainly not opposed to what they do. I just wanted to recognize we control those rules.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than have a fight, we decided let's get in the mainstream with the rest of the country.
So,
Now,
so if Frank the attorney wanted to change the rules, how would Frank the attorney go about petitioning you to change the rules?
well, it doesn't have to be Frank the attorney. It can be you. Anyone can file a petition with the Supreme Court to change any of our rules.
Oh, okay.
And we're set up to have, on our court, we have 3 different rules committees. We have a committee on the criminal rules. I'm not a part of that. We have a committee on civil rules. I'm a member of that. And we have a committee on the legal profession. I'm also a member of that. And so that's how we look at all the requests. You can go to our website under research and rules, and we post rules for comment, potential rule changes we make. We post them for comment, and we ask people to send us a comment. Now, lawyers are mainly the ones that send us comments, and we get letters, and we post those letters. We've got a rules advisory committee that handles mainly civil cases of lawyers and judges and law professors that we will refer matters to, and they will tell us what they think. Before we change Chancery Court rules, we ask our Chancery judges what they think. We meet twice a year, and I meet with them, and we have discussions.
Wow.
Sometimes loud discussions over rules. What can we do to make it more efficient, more effective? You know, I'm constantly pushing for, you know, how can we be more effective? Look at our at domestic laws. How can we be more effective? There's a lot of blackmail that goes on in getting divorces. A lot of things that are unjust because of the rules and how we have them. Well, we acknowledge that that's their job to deal with some of these domestic cases and to make that smoother. You know, it's unfortunately it's costly to get a divorce, and should it be? Well, we don't want people to be able to run down and get a divorce, you know, for $50. We want to make it acknowledge the commitment there, but at some point there can be some blackmail and some things that go wrong, and it's not necessarily in the best interest of that family, the best interest of those people, best interest of the children, and the best interest of the state to have people in limbo for that period of time.
Right, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is very interesting conversation. So I want to use all of this and kind of pivot to something that you mentioned, and we kind of talk about this a little bit because I want to get your take on some national, the way the national court system is. But you had an opinion back in 21. Don't need to really get into but you reprimanded a justice court judge for violating judicial canons and some other stuff, and not to go through that, not to even rehash that, but let's look at I've said to Gene and Dean, some others have been on the show, Mississippi really should be a roadmap for others to follow, because I think we do so much right here. We do a lot of things that really position this state. As you mentioned earlier, our court system is sound. It's probably doing business in the state of Mississippi. They know, you know, the courts are going to, how they're going to react and how they're going to be, the legislature, how they're going to be, the executive branch. So I want to kind of get that idea. You reprimanded a justice court judge for basically getting out of bounds. On the national scope, you see the Supreme Court issuing and telling an appellate court judge or a district court judge, hey, you're out of bounds over here. But then, and that's in one area. But then you got another area of the country where they just seem to be running amok. What's going on here? What's happening between the federal constitutional Supreme Court versus the legislative created district courts? Why are we not seeing some more, as you put it in this one, why are we not seeing some more crackdown on these district judges?
Well, let me start with this.
Okay.
It's not my opinion. It's the court's opinion.
It's the court's opinion. All right.
I write it.
You wrote
So,
the majority opinion. Yes, sir.
I'm not getting on to you. I
Yes.
just want to make sure that when we look at it,
Yeah.
I'm the author of it, but I got to get 4 people to vote.
4 more people.
That's right.
Right.
In this case, this is part of our jurisdiction, is to look at what judges and lawyers do. Make sure that they follow the code of conduct. I have a separate code of judicial conduct that I must follow. If I don't follow it, there is a constitutionally created Judicial Performance Commission that will come after me, and they're the prosecutor. And in the case you're referring to, the Judicial Performance Committee, received a complaint, investigated the matter, and based on their investigation, they began proceedings to discipline this judge. Unfortunately, our justice court judges are not lawyers.
Right.
And that's a matter of controversy. Our justice court is a constitutionally created court. They are I hate to say the lowest level, they are the base level of courts. You don't have to have a lawyer to go to justice court. You don't have to be a lawyer to be in justice court. You have misdemeanor criminal jurisdiction, which means the crime carries punishment of only up to a year in prison, no more. All right, so they'd stay in the county jail. And civil matters up to $3,500. Every year there's a bill to increase that for inflation. And I could argue both ways on that. That's up to the legislature whether they do that or not. Part of the problem of not having lawyers in this position is that we really don't apply the rules of evidence. We don't apply the rules of civil procedure. We do expect them to follow some of the rules of criminal procedure because a lot of times a justice court judge is the first judge a person that has been charged or arrested will see. And so we put a lot of responsibility there. I wish our justice court judges were all lawyers. In Rankin County, I'm not sure how the new election will come out, but we've had a number of years that our justice court judges have all been lawyers. I think that's a benefit. If they do something wild and crazy, they know better and they know what they should do.
Right, they've been trained.
And so I think that has led to a more efficient and effective justice court in Rankin County. Now, I know there are people that will disagree with me on specific events. That's fine. But I believe having all lawyers in that, all trained, is a good thing. A lot of times our disciplinary proceedings against justice court judges will be against the judges that are not lawyers. And that's unfortunate. And sometimes, we've moved away from, when I started, I went and had a hearing out in front of the courthouse in Clark County under the magnolia tree. And that's where the justice court judge is a pretty day. That's where he wanted to hold court.
Under the magnolia tree.
That's right.
On the front lawn of the courthouse.
And he told me he didn't care what those green books said. And those green books were the Mississippi Code.
Sure.
Well, as a lawyer, fortunately, I've been trained to know that I could appeal that decision. And I could get to circuit court or chancery court, and I could move that case along. It was unfortunate, though, that we had somebody that would waste my client's time, money, and my energy on something like that. So it was inefficient.
Sure.
And so unfortunately, to get to what you talk about from the federal standard, though, they select judges differently and others in the feds. Two of my colleagues have been appointed by Senator Wicker and Senator Hyde-Smith, Bobby Chamberlain and Jimmy Maxwell, who are outstanding judges, to seats in the Northern District. I think it has a lot to do with who your senators are, because the president generally follows the senators and who they nominate and select to be federal judges. Federal judges have jobs for life, so you can't get rid of them. And they're going to be there. And in some areas of the state, they view the world a little bit differently than we do. But I do believe a lot of the decisions have come down. This has been already an extraordinary session of the United States Supreme Court, because normally they take off from the end of June until the 1st of October. You don't hear anything from them. They're on vacation and they're doing things. Well, this court's been working during that period of time, and one of the things they've been doing is, take the nationwide injunctions. They have basically taken away the power of one judge in North Dakota being able to put a nationwide injunction over somebody. And I think that's probably the right decision. But some people believe that's an activist court. We had an activist court in the 60s with the Warren Court.
Yep.
You can argue other times we've had, the pendulum kind of swings back and forth. But I think this court has been one that is really looking at the actions that President Trump has taken or been trying to take. And the issue with immigration, which is way past my pay grade, is one that the federal courts are not inundated with. But immigration is a big issue in federal courts, and they spend a lot of time dealing with that.
Isn't it? It's just all how it's written, and then interpreted how it's written. And then it just comes down to people
Yeah.
doing the interpretation.
And that's why though, I watched the confirmation hearing of my two colleagues, and they didn't ask them a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But as you go up that ladder, they also had a nominee for the Third Circuit, I believe. The senators were there, and they were blasting that nominee. They were not courteous and kind, and that's kind of how it's come with the United States Supreme Court nominees. You better be willing to undergo a battle. We've seen that with Brett Kavanaugh and others. That the stakes though are tremendous.
Isn't that unfortunate that it's like that?
Well, I mean, that's our Constitution. If you go back and read Article 3, Article 3 set up the judiciary and used the least amount of words in our Constitution to describe how it was, and gave the Congress the right to set it up below the Supreme Court. And if you study constitutional law, you're going to go back and look at Marbury versus Madison, and I don't know, is that rightly decided? Well, that we've gotten to where we are, and we've got a United States Supreme Court, unfortunately, that can set aside legislative and executive decisions. Is that what it was intended to do? We could read the Federalist Papers, and we can disagree and discuss that all day long.
I know, right? But it's interesting your take.
Well,
just to hear your take on it, because you live in this world, and it's very, very refreshing to hear you describe it and how.
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, I've been appointed I've been elected as a Mississippi Supreme Court justice. I've not been elected as king.
Right.
And there's a process, and I play a role in that. In fact, I'm one of 9, and so I have to engage with my colleagues. I have to convince my colleagues if I think I'm right. And sometimes, why do we have 9? Well, I think it's good we have 9. It raises the number.
It does.
That when we're 9-0 in decisions, we feel fairly certain about them. When we're 5-4, we had a decision here recently. We're 4-4-1, and sometimes that's just how we add up the numbers. But that's how we set it up. That's the brilliance of the United States Constitution. The brilliance of the United States Constitution is how well it can be adopted over the years, and it doesn't. It's not just set at one time. Now, the Mississippi Constitution, 1890. Gene was in 10th grade then.
Yeah.
But he could tell us a little bit more that was going on there.
Oh,
but,
my God.
we had several constitutions. There'd been the fight between the whole hogs and the half hogs, which I'm sure you've never heard of.
No.
But the whole fight was that in our earlier constitutions, do we appoint our judges or do we elect our judges?
Right.
And as you can imagine, the whole hogs wanted to elect all of our judges. The half hogs wanted to elect our trial judges and appoint our appellate judges. And eventually that was decided about the 1910s, where we went and said, we're going to elect all of our judges. We're going to give our appellate judges a little bit longer term. So I have an 8-year term
Right.
versus the trial judges that have a 4-year term.
Right.
And so we could sit here, and you can invite me back, and we'll argue about elected versus appointed judges all day long. What I've always said, what matters the most is you want to make sure that the people that are making the decision know who the people are that they're appointing and who they're considering. And that we don't simply select people based on friendship or that they've worked on my campaign. We look at people's body of work and what they've done, and we ask them a difficult question. How will you decide cases?
Right.
And I hope the answer is always going to be, I'm going to decide it based on what the law is.
Right.
Not what I want it to be.
Right.
And so.
And this goes back to having the right people in the right job, and we need to keep those people. We had the benefit of having the newest Justice Branning on this program. We've had her on several times. Matter of fact, we're coming to see her in a couple of weeks. We're going to come down, and she's going to kind of show us around, and we're going to interview her and talk to her. Love to pop in and
you'll
maybe
be 2 doors down.
Maybe you can pop
Please
your head
do.
in and say hello. But it's very interesting to learn how all of this works. And you're right about the elected versus appointed. That's a good argument. I wasn't necessarily going to raise it here, but since you did, I like the elected side. I think it holds you accountable. It holds you accountable. As you said, you're not you weren't made king.
Right.
It holds you accountable to the people, and maybe it makes the citizenry be more involved in what goes on day to day. And hearing this from you, seeing this program today, there's so much going on that golly, I didn't realize.
Part of, my friends will laugh at this, but I don't care if you elect or appoint us. You're electing us either way. The question is, how large is the electorate?
Right.
And in the federal system, the electorate is basically 52. And that's the president, and you need 51 senators.
Right.
In my district, with almost 1 million people, over 400,000 voted in my election. That's the electorate. The problem with electing judges in Mississippi in 1994, we went to nonpartisan elections. And so I'm an advocate of this. One of the problems that I have is when you go out to ask people to vote, ask them to vote for you, the first question is, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? And so I have to explain to them that I can't tell them that I'm running nonpartisan. And if I do declare I'm a Republican or a Democrat, I can lose my job. I can void the election, which is unfortunate because that's the basic information that people want. They want to know. And there are restrictions on what we do. I can't say, I'm going to affirm every conviction of every criminal case. Bubba Bramlett would love me if I did that. But I'm not going to make that commitment because I can't make that commitment.
Sure, you can't make that statement.
The facts of the law may occur in a case.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is we run for elections, but we don't have all of the tools that all the other people running for election have.
Right.
And I don't have a party structure. I don't have the. Now, Gene could say if he thought I was a Republican or Democrat, but I can't say that.
Sure.
And quite frankly, I don't think party politics should matter at all in judicial selection.
Agreed.
Unfortunately, in voting, there are a lot of people that use how you describe yourself, which party you declare for. They use that as a key piece in their decision making, who they vote for. And so, by us not being able to say that, other people can get mad at us that other people are saying what we are, and they can vote. And it's not the best, but it's the system. And as I tell people, I don't like running for election either. But if I want to be a judge, if I want to serve, if I want to offer myself to the people, the only way I can do that is put my name in there and say, I want to run. And then I can go out every day and I can shake people's hands, answer their questions, talk to them, and tell them why they should invest in me for the next 8 years to make sure that the justice system has been proper and is fair. It's more importantly, is just.
I feel very secure in your hands that it's exactly that.
Well, thank you.
I very much appreciate this conversation today. It has been very informative. Thank you for bringing him in today. I've learned a ton. I would imagine our audience has learned a ton too. I've learned way more today than I ever thought I would know. But that's impressive.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for running for a Supreme Court judge. I wish you all the best. Hopefully you'll run again because that's coming up pretty soon.
3 years.
In 3
28
years.
will be the year.
28 will be the year. So in 3 years. When do you actually start running? When do you start campaigning?
He never stops.
Thanks.
I mean, you can't.
I guess that's true.
I don't. We can't go to political events.
Right.
So you'll never see me in an event that's sponsored by DNRs. But I am involved. I make a point to make friendships. I make a point to get to know others in our legislature, others that in my district.
Networking.
I want to meet mayors and council and supervisors, and I do enjoy meeting people. Sure. And my job is one that is I don't meet a lot of people. Right. And so I don't know that I ever stopped, quote, running because I never stopped meeting people. Right. Talking to people.
Doing shows like this.
I want to educate. I mean, to me, this is an opportunity to educate.
Sure.
And going to different events. I go to luncheons, Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs and do those things. I'll decide in January of 28 if I'm going to run again. My term is actually one that has a year delay, and so my term didn't. I ran in 20, but my term didn't start until 22. So my term goes to 30.
No
goes
way.
to January 1 of 30.
Yeah.
But I look forward to running. If the good Lord's willing, my health's good, and the people encourage it, I'll be in there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing it. This has been
glad
great.
you
Will you
came
come
by.
back?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is your second trip.
Hello, I'm Mayor Wyndham, and I'm thrilled to show you the city creating its own future. Pearl is located in Rankin County, the fastest growing county in Mississippi, and there's no question why. Access to great schools, even better shopping, and unbridled beauty make Pearl a town that truly embodies its name. And with a truly exceptional team of first responders, public safety is another key component of our success. With fantastic housing opportunities from quaint suburban neighborhoods to gorgeous lakefront properties, there's a place for you here in Pearl. You can't beat the location. Right outside of Pearl is the crossroads of the South, where Interstate 20 meets Interstate 55. From here you can travel anywhere within the state or the country. Or you can choose to stay right here in Pearl or experience the small town atmosphere, community pride, and heart of the local residents.
Hi, folks, and welcome back into this edition of This Week in Pearl. What a great conversation that was with Supreme Court Justice Kenny Griffiths. There's so much that goes on with the judiciary. You just don't realize what all they're involved in and how much they do, and it's really incredible, the amount of stuff that goes on. And I really appreciate him stepping to the stage today and talking to you guys and to me. I learned so much from him, and it was great with him bringing that all that wisdom that he has on the court and the appeals court. I really loved learning how that process works, and then all the things that go on with drug courts and the veterans courts and things that we just didn't realize. Anyway, it's fantastic. Thank you again for coming in, Mr. Justice. We appreciate it very much. All right, so what's going on in Pearl? Well, let's talk about it. All right, so this week, Pearl travels to Meridian for football. This Friday night. It is, of course, a 5:30 gate open, 7 o'clock kickoff, but Pearl will travel to Meridian. It is the beginning of district play. So preseason's over. That record's out. Now we start district play. This starts to determine where you fall in the playoff picture. So we start this Friday night at Meridian. Game time is 7 o'clock. If you can't travel to Meridian, be sure and catch it right here on PMB Sports. Also, on Monday nights, we film the coaches show at Mugshots. I always love to mention this. If you want to come out and meet the coach, meet a couple of kids, meet an assistant coach, have a great dinner at Mugshots, you can do that. We film at 6. Usually can catch the kids there between 5:15, 5:30, and even afterwards, as well as the coaches are there too. You can come by, have a great dinner at Mugshots, and hang out with us and meet them and learn a little bit about the team and about the kids. Main Street Pearl is hosting its annual Oktoberfest. I think this is 4th or 5th year for Oktoberfest. It's going to happen this year at Trustmark Park. Fantastic food vendors, as well as all kind of vendors with arts and crafts and things of that nature. There's a kid zone for the kids, and then after 4, when that ends, the kids go home and the park changes into a big party that night. I know there's going to be like 25 plus beer tastings or something like that, and then there is a band that's playing that night. So get your tickets early for that. It is this Saturday, October the 11th. And I'd be amiss if I didn't mention that the annual Trick or Treat Street for Halloween is coming October 25th, 6 p.m. That's a Saturday night, again sponsored by Main Street Pearl. That is a huge event, probably one of the largest in the area. It happens right out front of City Hall. We do close Old Brandon Road so that the kids can walk up and down the road safely. So that's going to be October 25th, starting at 6 p.m. There's a lot going on in October. I mean, a ton. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed today's show. I know I have, again, learned a lot. We really appreciate Justice Griffiths coming in and speaking to us, and thanks again to Representative Gene Newman. Anyway, I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I hope you all have a great week. Until next time, I'll see you then.